Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Michael McCarville, and this is Fun with Fallen Flags, episode 59. So episode 59 is a curved trestle build that we're going to do in HO scale narrow gauge. The Rio Grande Southern has a trestle, 39A is its designation. So the Rio Grande Southern Railroad runs north and south through Vance Junction. Well, there's a line that breaks off and goes east towards Telluride. So it goes down from Vance Junction, goes around a loop, and then heads up Keystone Hill, and then goes off towards and ends in Telluride, Colorado. Well, that little loop has a trestle on it at the southern end, and that's essentially what you're looking at right here. So this is the project that we're going to do. We're going to build this trestle that is just east of Vance Junction. So let's get started. Before I go any further, huge thank you, huge shout out to the Friends of the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad historic photographs that they provide. These guys not only provide photos and allowed me to use this one so I could show everyone what we're about to build, but also answered tons of questions that I had, and hopefully I didn't pester them too much, but they were great to work with, and this isn't the first project that I've used some of the resource material online. You can purchase these photographs too, and after I get done with this trestle, I may have to actually have this photo so I can show everybody what we did and what it actually looked like in real life. Using this photo, if you want to track down this photo specifically, it's again in the Friends of the Cumbres and Toltec. So go to their website, and I'll put all this information in the body down below of the notes of this video. But it's in the Richard L. Dorman collection. It's gallery 129, and it's the first photo. So it's 129-001. Easy to find. So that's where you can find the actual photo if you want to take a little bit closer look than this one. So we're going to skip over some of the basics. We've already covered that. No need to go through that again. Episode 57, how to build a trestle. Novice, never done it before, go there. That's a good place for you to start. If you want to know how to build the plaster castings for footer that we did, or the nut bolt washers that we did, that's episode 58, and you can go check that out. This is going to kind of pile on top of some of the other techniques that we had. Now, we're not going to do footers on this one because the bents are all sitting in a stream bed or covered with sand. And we're not going to use any nut bolt washers because closer inspection of the high-res photo shows absolutely none. So they were just tacked in with spikes or big heavy nails. So, and the Rio Grande Southern, their bridges aren't all the same, built all the same with the same angles and everything else. So there is going to be a little variety, and variety is good. So let's talk about specifically about this one. You'll notice that it's curved, but through research I found out that there's 13 bents on this thing. It's 202 feet long. The arc length is 202 feet. It has the bents then would come out to be about 14 feet on center. There's 3 fire barrels. You can see 2 of them really well, and then the third one's kind of off on the side. But again, if you want to get a real high-res picture, you can find it on that website. You will have to pay for the high-res one, but you can see this one. And then the most interesting thing about this, other than the we can't really see the retaining walls too much, so we'll do a little short retaining wall and then some earth embankment on that. But if you look at bents number going from right to left, the first one looks like it has been there for quite a long time, but the second and third one, not only are they new construction, but the cross members, the X frame pieces, the supports, those are higher than normal. They don't go all the way to the bottom, but they've got some cross member pieces that look like maybe to keep some of the stream out, and they're mounted horizontal about a third of the way up. So we're going to build 2 bents that aren't weathered at all, going to look like new construction. It's going to be a nice contrast, and we're going to have to build some of those horizontal pieces too. So it's going to be definitely a different trestle than what we've done in the past, because everything else looks like it's been there for 50, 80 years. So anyway, so that's the project and that's the background. So let's go ahead and get started on the actual construction of it. And again, if you're looking for any of the more of the details, I'm going to put a lot of the stuff in the body of the YouTube video. Go check there and you can check out some of the notes that we've got. Okay, quick 30-second basics of what we're doing. We're going to use a chopping tool. You can use a straight razor blade wherever you want to, but some sort of chopping tool that you use to cut stuff up would be really handy, especially since we're cutting so much wood. Also, when you're using these, don't cut all the way through. Cut a little ways, rotate the board, cut a little, and you'll get a lot squarer cut. And then you can clean it up with a little bit of sandpaper. After the wood's cut, you're going to take a look at the isopropyl alcohol and India ink wash. Just doesn't need to sit in there very long. It's gonna basically coat it with sort of a black. It'll look almost like driftwood with a little bit of black spots and things on it, a little bit of a texture. So play around with that. Then the oil base wash is applied next, and in the lower left you see what looks like coffee. It's an oil-based paint and a paint thinner. So again, all this stuff's in the previous episodes. If you're curious about the details, go there. And then anyway, in the lower right, what we've got is just some of the wood that's been given the India ink and the oil base wash on it, and you can take a look at that. Again, other video, so we go through it in a lot more detail. Okay, now 2 of the bents are recent construction, so we're not going to stain those. So set that aside. Matter of fact, I had to draw out a whole grid on a piece of paper and lay out the each of the bents according to what we're going to do. Because not only are some of them stained and some of them not, they also change in height a little bit too. So we talked about the length of it, we haven't talked about the height. So you'll notice in the upper left corner, you can see that I've got the top piece on the very cap of 2 of the bents. Those are stained, but all the rest of the material that goes underneath that is not stained. And in the lower right, you can see what it ends up looking like. Now, let's talk about the height of the bends. So I'm going to put this also in the notes of the YouTube video if you're curious. But anyway, there are 7 bents that are 12 feet high. Then there are 3 bents that are 14 foot high. Then there's 3 that are 16 foot high. One of those 16s is weathered. The other 2 16s are not. So again, all this will be in the notes, but that gives us the dimensions for not only the number of bents and the length, but now also the heights of each of them. And it got kind of complicated, so rather than losing track of what I was standing and what I wasn't and everything else, I just drew all of it out on a big piece of paper and piled all the wood associated with each of the heights and whether it was getting stained or not and whether the top was already stained. So anyway, let's take a look at the number of bents that we have finished now, and I'll give you an idea kind of what everything looks like. Okay, quick status update. We've got our bents to the trestle. They're done, and I've got them laid out here on the desk. So we've got 7 12-footers, 3 14-footers, 3 16-footers, with the repair work done on these 2 bents here. This represents the new wood that was used on these trestles, and there are 4 12-inch boards along here each side, and this reflects the work that was done on the actual trestle bridge 39A. So at this point, these we can set these aside. And you remember the jig that we used? Flip it over, and I started laying out a bunch of concentric circles. Got 29. I'm sorry, I've got 22-inch radius. So it goes 19, 21, 22, 23. So I can use this to lay out track work and bridge work and that type of stuff. I use 14-inch segments, so it may not be a perfectly smooth curve, but that's intentional because when we sandwich together the stringers, we want them to align to this because it's going to be straight sections of wood, not curved pieces. So it'll make sense when we get going. So at this point, we have a jig. We're going to use that just for alignment, and I'm going to cut up the wood pieces, and we're going to go 3 stringers spaced, and then 3 stringers spaced. I'm going to put those down, and then I'm going to glue them to the next section. So we're going to go 3 and 3 on either side all the way down. So we've got a lot of wood to cut and stain, so I'm going to get started on that, and then we'll start gluing these stringer sections together. So there'll be 6 stringers between each bent. When that whole apparatus is done, then we can glue the trestle bents down to the top of it. So well, let me go stain some wood, and we'll get going on the next section. Okay, so I've got a bunch of these little clusters here of 3 boards glued together. So I'm starting to glue these up in the jig, and I'm doing a section. And while this is drying, I'm going to add some blocking to the bottom side of the short trestles, or the short bents, so that everything is the same height. So when I let the trestle sit on a platform, it doesn't sag or anything. So none of the pieces that I add to the short ones will be seen. They're all going to be buried in scenery. But when I put the trestle down, I can get a nice solid platform underneath it, put it on a piece of material, and then put track on top of it, run trains across it, and then as I come back I can add the scenery underneath. So while these are drying, I'm going to work on leveling all these out. One other thing, as you're going around the inside curve, you're going to notice that the boards are going to need to be trimmed down just a little bit, so just kind of sand them. As you're sanding them, if you can angle the end a little bit, and you're going to do a lot of sanding and fitting as you go. On the outside, you can still get a kind of an angled butt joint in there, so you'll sand those a little bit, but you're definitely going to want to trim the inside ones down a little bit, either with a blade or just with a lot more sanding. So the boards on the inside need to be just a hair shorter, but we didn't cut them that way. We are going to sand them that way as we glue them together. And you can see kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm sanding and fitting as I go. Okay, so the stringers are all set, and I've aligned it so that I can glue the bents onto the repaired section, so I had to flip it over. So I'm still using the jig, and I'm squeezing it together as I go, and as I attach each of the bents, I'm not only truing it up with a triangle, but I also am making sure that it's still nice and tight on that jig so they don't spread out and wander away. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these. The shorter ones, you can see that I'm going to add the little extra footer piece to make the whole thing level. I'm adding those as I go down each of the bents. I'm going to finish this out, and then, moment of truth, flip it over, see how it looks, and then we'll take a look. Wish me luck. So all the bents have been added to the 2 parallel stringers, and you can see by the original picture and what we've put together that the 2 bents that are freshly repaired match, and the stringer section just to the right of that is matched. So at this point, I'd like to say we're done, but we also talked about putting the water barrel platforms on there, and from the photo I can see 3 of them. So we're going to go ahead and add those real quick, and then we'll see what it looks like. 3 water barrel platforms are done. I'm going to glue these on, give them a little bit of color, and then that should be it. Okay, at this point we've got the fire barrel platforms. These are all colored, got them stained with an alcohol and India ink wash, and then a oil paint and paint thinner wash on top of that. So just like everything else we've done. So those are done, and I'm ready to put those on. let's go on to the next step, because before I put those on, I want to finish one more thing, because it'll be a lot easier to do this without the fire barrel platforms on. So I have a bunch of metallic strips of paper, and I just cut these from a sheet of material that I had. It's a rivet foil shiny silver, so you can use one of those rollers that puts rivets and nail holes and stuff in it for embossing. But I just cut it up into strips, and I like the shiny metallic look. And I cut it in strips, and then I cut it to length. And what we're going to do is we're just going to glue it to the very tops of the bends. So you can see I've already glued on a couple here. And I make it just a hair bigger, just a smidge bigger than the 12 by 12 that we are using in HO scale for the tops of the bends. The reason why I do that is because when I'm done, I'll take an edge. I've been using the blade of an X-Acto knife, the back side, and I'll just take it and just give it a little bit of a flat side. And what that does is it looks like it actually goes over the board and then curl over on the edges. So what these are basically fire shields. They're supposed to be galvanized metal that's put on top of the bends, and it's supposed to protect the bent from any of the clinkers, any of the anything in the firebox that may happen to come out, and protect the bridge from any type of burning or just even damage. Now they're a little too shiny, so we're going to give those a wash of a grayish look, because we want it to look like galvanized metal. And if you've ever seen galvanized metal like on flashing or an old galvanized garbage can, it's a silverish color. It's got a little bit of a metal look to it, but it's also got a very heavy oxidized look. So we're going to do that. So let me go ahead and finish this, and then I'll give it a wash. I'm going to glue the fire barrels on the platforms, and then we'll go ahead and take a final look, because that should be the last piece. Now, I don't have barrels at this point. I'm going to go ahead and get some online, and I'll just paint those up and stick those in there when I get them. Okay, so I painted the top of the bends, that metallic paper. I gave it a thin wash of a Model Masters magnesium buffing paint. It's made to paint on and then kind of buff and give it a bit of a sheen. I didn't buff it, I just used it as kind of a thin wash. I used some of the thinner paint that was at the top. It didn't shake it up a lot. So it's just kind of a thin coating, and it gives it a really good galvanized metal look. I did the same thing on the larger trestle that I made when I was just starting the video series out. So anyway, so that's done. You notice that the barrel platforms are glued on. They're done. Still no barrels yet. I'll put those on at a later date. And then we talked about the retaining walls on the ends. I built some short little half-height trestle bents to use as kind of in front of the retaining wall pieces, just so it looks like there's a finished look to the end. And in the photos, I can't tell what it looks like, so I have no idea. I'm thinking that it's probably standard. It was built the same way, so I kind of just extrapolated based on some of the practices that I've seen. But you can see in this photo, it looks a lot like the photo that we started with the reconstructed sections. So once I get this on a layout, I will put some track across it, and then we're going to have to start working on Vance Junction next, because this is located very close to that, and I definitely want to include this as part of the layout. So I'm going to head to Vance Junction as soon as we're done with this video. That's about it. Don't forget, there is a HO Scale Tutorials Facebook group. There is also, I'm going to include links to that, as well as the YouTube channel in the body of the text of this video. Please feel free to join. You'll also notice we have a new member of the family. We have the moose up on the wall, and he appeared about halfway through the video. So if you made it to the end, you're eligible to vote for the name of the moose. We haven't named him yet. I have no idea. I've had him for a long time. It's actually my wife's, and we've never named him. So let's name him. So send me your suggestions for that. Also, again, I want to thank the Friends of Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad, the photo gallery that they provide and is freely available to people to view. And then if you want to support them, please consider a purchase of some of their photos online. Really, really good photos. And honestly, I couldn't do half of some of this stuff that if it wasn't for them. Certainly not this bridge, because I didn't even know that this one existed. And because of their site, I built this. So guys, again, thank you for your support and the information you provided along the way. So that's it. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end, good job. And we'll look forward to talking to you on the next video, which is going to be episode 60. We're going to Vance Junction. Very excited. Thanks, you guys. Have a good day.